Hello, the Ohio Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators presents Financial Aid, the basics and new details in our ever-changing world. Tonight, we'll discuss what is financial aid, the cost of attendance, student aid index, financial need, categories, types, and sources of financial aid, the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, verification, and special circumstances. First, financial aid consists of funds provided to students and families to help pay for college. These funds could be scholarships, grants that don't have to be repaid, or loans or work study. All of these are considered financial aid. So there's a calculation that financial aid offices use to determine eligibility. The first component is the cost of attendance, or COA, and that includes direct costs and indirect costs. Direct costs are things like tuition, fees, or housing or food that could be found on your student bill. And indirect costs are other things that a student would need to attend school. So books, course materials, transportation, and personal expenses. So both of those direct and indirect costs combine to determine the cost of attendance. And this cost of attendance varies widely from college to college. The second component of the calculation is the Student Aid Index, or the SAI, and it's an index number used by colleges to determine eligibility for aid. It's calculated using information provided on the FAFSA, and it stays the same regardless of the college. It is not the amount of money owed to the college, and it's based on the ability to pay for college, not your willingness. It ranges from negative 1,500, or all the way up to just under $1 million. And the lower the SAI equals more aid eligibility. So what is financial need? So financial need is determined by subtracting the SAI from the cost of attendance. So we talked about both of those components before. So we have a chart here that compares what a higher cost versus mid-cost and lower cost institution and what your eligibility or need would be at each institution. So again, that cost of attendance is a variable, and it ranges widely from college to college, where the SAI remains the same at each college you're looking at. So at a higher cost institution, you could have a cost of attendance of, say, $58,000. Your SAI was calculated at $8,000. So you have a need of $50,000. The institution would look at how to fill that need with financial aid. And you can see with the same SAI at a lower cost institution, your need goes down to $14,000 because the cost of attendance is only $22,000. So let's discuss the categories of financial aid. There are two types. There are need-based and non-need-based aid, and they can range from scholarships, grants, loans, and employment. And that need, again, is based on that calculation that we just discussed of the cost of attendance minus the SAI. So gift aid is money that does not have to be paid back, and it's mostly likely scholarships and grants. Scholarships are usually based on merit, skill, or some sort of unique characteristic, while grants are based on financial need. There's also self-help aid, and we'll talk about loans first. So loans are money that students and parents may borrow to help pay for college expenses. Repayment typically begins after the education is finished. For the students, parent loans may have different repayment options. Only borrow what is really needed. So when you have your offer letters in front of you, you want to really see what's really needed to borrow. Do you need to borrow the full amount of a loan? You could be eligible for a private loan for, say, $25,000, but you may only really need to cover $15,000. So only borrow what's really needed. And look at loans as an investment in the future. Another form of self-help aid is work-study employment. This allows students to earn money and help pay for educational costs. This usually comes in the form of a paycheck or some sort of non-monetary compensation, such as room and board. The student decides whether or not to work and the number of hours to work, and their schedule is going to be based on the classes that they take. And just a note, while eligibility for work study may be shown on an aid offer, a separate application may be necessary. And again, you want to make sure that you realize that if it is on an aid offer, it's not going to come directly off of the bill. It will be on a paycheck. So sources of financial aid. There are 5 large sources of financial aid. First is the federal government, which is the largest source. States offer financial aid, and Ohio does a great job of having lots of options for our students. Colleges and universities have a wonderful amount of financial aid as well. Institutional scholarships, grants, and other programs. There are private sources, and then also employers. The federal student aid programs include the federal Pell Grant, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, or FSEOG, the Teach Grant, Federal Work Study, Direct Loans, and the Federal Plus Loan. So the Federal Pell Grant and FSEOG are going to be your need-based grants, and those are going to go to the students with the most need. The Teach Grant is going to be for students looking to go into education and to teach after they finish their degree. This is a grant, but could turn into an unsubsidized loan if the student doesn't meet all of the requirements before and after graduation. There is a component for teaching so many years in a need-based school. Federal Work Study, again, is a program where students have a job on campus and can earn money for expenses. The direct loan program, there are subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Those are going to be based on need. Federal subsidized loans allow students to not accrue interest while the student is in school, while unsubsidized loans are available for all students. And the Federal Plus Loan Program we're going to talk about the parent portion of this tonight, and that is a loan that parents can take out to help with educational expenses. This is a list of the Ohio student aid programs for 26-27, and I encourage you to go to highered.ohio.gov to learn more. Many of these programs use the FAFSA as the application, but some have additional application and requirements. I encourage you to go and look at all of the different programs that Ohio offers and what can be available to your student. Colleges and universities are a great source of financial aid. They award aid on the basis of both merit and need. Awards might be gift aid or self-help aid, and they use the information from the FAFSA or maybe from an internal application as well. So deadlines and application requirements vary by institution. So you want to get familiar with the websites for each of the schools that you're looking at, especially the financial aid page, to determine if there are other requirements that are needed for that institutional aid. So outside sources. So other places to look for student aid, especially scholarships, would be foundations, local businesses, charitable organizations, civic and church organizations that you're a part of. Look to employers. Your parents' employers might offer programs. Other things like the VA, the post 9/11 GI Bill is a wonderful source of financial aid. The VA offers other programs as well. Deadlines for these things are usually in the spring, and those small scholarships do add up. So I always encourage students to write one really good essay, and you can use it or tailor it to lots of different sources that you're looking at. So let's talk about the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and the important word in that acronym is free. It is no cost to students and families to complete the application. It's the application for federal grants, work study, and federal student loans. It's also the application for state of Ohio grants, and also many schools use it for determination for institutional scholarships and grants. You provide demographic information and also taxable and untaxed information, and that financial information will come from 2024. So where and when do we do the FAFSA? So first of all, the where is you're going to complete the FAFSA on studentaid.gov. As a last resort, there are paper FAFSAs available, but those are only in very small cases that you want to use a paper FAFSA. The FAFSA for the 26-27 academic year is now open. So it was supposed to open up on October 1st and it opened early. It opened earlier than ever before. So it is now available for students to complete. If you haven't created your FSA ID or studentaid.gov account, now is the time to complete that. Many colleges do set a FAFSA priority deadline. So again, make sure that you know the priority deadline if your college has one, and make sure that your FAFSA is in before then. The student does not have to be admitted to the school to submit the FAFSA. So again, you can add schools that you are interested in to your FAFSA form and they will get the information. And you're going to submit a new form every year. So again, the FAFSA will open up by October 1st each year. And so the FAFSA covers one academic year at a time. So a little bit of the timeline here. So you create your username and password, your FSA ID first. Then you go ahead and complete the FAFSA. After you've completed the FAFSA, both for the student and if needed, the parent information, then it'll go to the Department of Education for processing. Processing normally takes between 1 to 3 days. And then after that, it will be sent to the schools that you've identified on your FAFSA. And then after that, it'll be up to the school to determine the timeline of when they are sending information. And again, make sure that you are up to date on the students on the school's website. The financial aid office will most likely give you a timeline of when to expect information from the financial aid office. All right, let's talk about how to create that FSA ID. So it'll be on the studentaid.gov website. And again, you will go to that site, and on the top right, there is a button that says create an account. You're going to enter some login information, personal information. You'll enter things like your mailing address, email, phone, language preference, and challenge questions. Some tips for creating your FSA ID. The phone numbers, social security numbers, and emails can only be associated with one FSA ID. So remember, all of those things need to be unique. We always tell students not to use their high school email accounts because many times those do get shut off after some time, and you want to be able, you can access your FSA ID. So it is a good time to create a new professional email account to use. We also recommend using the Who is My Contributor tool on the studentaid.gov website to ensure that you know what parent needs to complete an FSA ID. Each student filling out a FAFSA needs an FSA ID, and your FSA ID should not be shared. You want to keep it in a secure location and be able to access it when you need it. So we're going to go through some screenshots of completing the FAFSA, so you have an idea of what to expect when you go to the site. You'll go to your landing page, and again, this is from the 25-26, but the 26-27 FAFSA is available, so that will be the one that will pop up on the landing page, and you'll go ahead and hit the Start a New Form button. You're going to select the role that you're completing. We always suggest that the student complete the student role and the parent only complete the parent role. And then the student always starts the FAFSA and complete their section first. So we're going to go through this for the student section. First thing, the student's going to review their student identity information. This is information pulled from their FSA ID. And you just want to make sure that the information is correct. You can't make any changes through the FAFSA form. You would have to go back to your account on studentaid.gov to make any changes. So just know that if there is something that you do need to update, would be likely an email address or a phone number that you'd want to update. The other things would remain the same. The next question is to consent for the IRS to review your tax information and put it directly into the FAFSA. Regardless of if you're a tax filer or not, everyone will need to review and provide consent. Everyone who contributes to the FAFSA will be required to provide consent to transfer data from the IRS. This includes non-filers and people without Social Security numbers and foreign tax filers. The processing system will confirm if there's tax information on file and will bring it directly into the FAFSA. And it also will confirm those who are non-filers, which may reduce verification. And those who do not consent, they will not be eligible for federal aid. If the IRS finds your information and places it into the FAFSA, you will see this screen importing data. If they're unable to, or they don't, or there's no information to find, you will be asked some additional financial questions later in the form. So let's talk about student dependency status. So dependent students are students who are under the age of 24, don't have any unusual circumstances, and they will report their information, and they will also report information from their parents on the FAFSA. An independent student will report their own information, and if they're married, they will report their spouse's information. So what determines student dependency status? Age, if they were an orphan or ward of the court or were in foster care, if they're working on a graduate degree, if they were in an emancipation or a legal guardianship, if the student is married, they have children or dependents of their own that they support, or if they were a veteran. There are some caveats to each of these things, so you just want to make sure that you read the question carefully on the FAFSA. And there's also an information icon to give some more information on questions if you have if you need further clarification. So students will be asked if they have other circumstances. So if they will be asked if they are an unaccompanied minor or considered homeless. And so they will answer yes or no. If the student answers yes, they will have a question pop up on how it was determined that they were homeless or at risk of being homeless. And so they would select how that determination was made. Did it come from a director from a shelter? Did it come from a district homeless liaison for their home high school school district? Or did they talk to the financial aid administrator at the school? The student will then be asked if there are other unusual circumstances preventing them from contacting their parents. Are they in an unsafe environment where they're not able to ask their parents their information? Are they a victim of human trafficking? They will go ahead and answer yes to this question if they have any of these unusual circumstances. If no, then they will just move through the form. If they answered yes to any of the other student circumstances, they will be considered provisionally independent and be able to move through the form with just using their information and not asking for parent information. And then the college will follow up with all of these students that are considered provisionally independent to determine dependency status and gather other documentation that will be needed. If your student is considered a dependent student, they will be asked if their parents are unwilling to provide information for the FAFSA. So if a student is dependent, would need parent information, and their parents are refusing to provide information, they can select that they would like to apply for a direct unsubsidized loan only, and that would allow them to, again, to move through the form and complete the form. The form would not calculate a student aid index for the student, and so they wouldn't be eligible for any other aid, even if even if they could be eligible, because their parents are not willing to provide their information. Many times colleges will follow up with these students as well to ensure, one, did they answer this question correctly? We do see some mistakes on this question. And two, to see kind of what situation the student is in and how to move forward. After the dependency questions, students are going to be asked some demographic questions. They're going to be asked about gender, race, and ethnicity. And just know that these questions are for research purposes only. These answers are not going to affect student eligibility for financial student aid, for federal student aid. They're not going to be used in any of the calculations, and they're not going to be shared with the schools to which the student applies. Student will be asked about their citizenship status. They'll be asked about parent education status. And finally, they'll be asked about if the student's parent was killed in the line of duty to determine if they're eligible for any additional aid. Student will be asked about their completion status. This will be their high school completion status at the beginning of the 26-27 school year. So for our high school seniors, you will be selecting high school diploma because that's the goal. You will have your high school diploma at the end of the year, ready to start the 26-27 academic year at college. You're going to still let us know your high school information. So what state is your high school in and the name of your school. It's going to ask some financial information. And again, these are going to be information used from 2024 taxes. And we'll ask, did the student file? We ask some asset questions. The student will enter a response into each field. And if the student has nothing to report, they're going to just enter 0. And again, there are going to be some information icons to help determine what is included for the assets and what's not included. Then the student's going to finally select up to 20 colleges to send their FAFSA information to. And again, the student doesn't have to be admitted to the college to send their FAFSA information to. Also, on the school side of things, we only see that the student decided to send the FAFSA to us. We don't see any of the other schools the student is looking at. All right, who is my parent? So your student is considered a dependent student, so parent information needs to be included. And we always encourage families to go through the who's my parent information before we start the FAFSA, just so everyone knows, what the next steps are and who we need to invite. So we just need to determine, things are your parents married to each other? And do they live together? And if not, does one parent provide more financial support than the other over the past 12 months? And then if your parents are no longer married, is the parent you're including, did they get remarried? So that way you know who to include on the FAFSA. Again, all of these things are on the studentaid.gov website as tools. So we always encourage families to use these tools before starting the FAFSA. Another tool on the website is my parent a contributor when I fill out the FAFSA? And this is a great infographic. Again, it's available on the website. And if you are in a situation where parents are unmarried or not living together, you'll want to go ahead and read over these to determine which parent you're going to invite for the FAFSA. All right. The student is almost done with their section. The student will need to know their parent email address because they're going to invite that parent as a contributor to the FAFSA. This process changed this year and made it much easier. So the student will only need to know their parent email address. In past years, they needed much more information. And so we are so excited to see that the Department of Ed has made this process much easier. And so we're only looking for one parent email address. Some key guidance to inviting the parent. Again, only one parent's information is needed to progress to the form. If the second parent is needed, the parent completing the form can invite them through that process. The parent can access the form by accepting the invitation in the email that they receive. The student's also going to be provided an invitation link with a code that can be shared directly with the parent. And again, we recommend talking through that parent wizard before starting the FAFSA so you know which emails to use. All right, after the student has completed inviting their parent, they're going to have a review page. And so you will see all of the sections of the FAFSA here. You can go ahead and use the arrows to open up and make sure that you've reviewed each question and everything looks correct. There's also going to be the contributor section so you can see who you invited and what the status is. And then finally, the student is going to provide their signature. Their FSAID acts as their electronic signature, so they will go through and agree to the terms and hit the sign button. And then the student section will be complete and the student will see where the FAFSA is in the process. So this is pending submission and the student section is complete. And then what they need to do next. And so the next thing it will be the parent section. So this is a screenshot of the parent invitation email. So the parent will accept the invitation by clicking the button, and then there will be a code that they are going to also have to provide when starting the FAFSA. The parent will log in using their FSA ID or studentaid.gov account. It's the same thing. We're just kind of transitioning what we're calling it. So they'll log in with their email, their username, and their password. And if they haven't set one up yet, they can go ahead and hit create an account and set it up then and go ahead and start the FAFSA. There's no waiting period for students and parents who have a social security number to use that FSA ID to go through the FAFSA. There used to be a 1 to 3 day waiting period for the studentaid.gov account, and there's no longer that. So you can go ahead and create that account and complete the FAFSA. After logging in, the parent's taken to the Accept the 2627 FAFSA invitation page, and then the invitation code from the parent's email automatically fills in the box if the parent used the link from the email, which is nice and slick and allows things to move quickly. The parent will then accept the invitation, and you agree to share your information on the FAFSA. So the parent questions are similar to the student questions. You're going to, again, confirm your identity information. You'll provide consent and approval for the use of your federal tax information from the IRS. You'll answer demographic information. You'll also answer your current marital status and the state of residence. Some other things that aren't answered on the student side will be if the household received any federal benefits. So you'll go ahead and review those and click any that apply. Just a note on the free or reduced price lunch. This would only be for families that would meet the criteria of receiving reduced or free lunch. Some schools or districts are free or reduced price lunch district-wide or school-wide, but only click this if your family would meet the criteria for receiving that. You'll go ahead and look at the family size. It does do behind the scenes calculation. You'll just want to make sure that that information is correct based on the tax information. If you've had another child or someone else has moved into your household, since that tax filing, you'll just want to ensure that your family size is correct. And you would just, if you do need to add anybody to that family size, you just to include you don't include the full family, just the additional people in your household size in the box below. You'll go ahead and include the number in college. This information is not used in the SAI calculation. A few years ago, it used to be included in the calculation. It no longer is. We'll ask some tax filing questions, such as, did you file an IRS 1040 form? And did you file jointly with your spouse? There'll be some basic tax information questions that you have to answer. Again, having your tax information handy is helpful. The information icons will let you know a specific line to look at for your tax forms. But again, it should be fairly straightforward. It will ask some asset information and just some things to point out. Assets don't include the value of your primary residence. So the home that you live in, you do not have to put the value of that as an asset for real estate. If you do have a second home or rental properties, you do need to put the value of those. Assets also don't include the value of life insurance or any sort of traditional retirement plans. This is what the parent, spouse, or partner invite looks like. So if the second parent needs to be included or spouse needs to be included on the FAFSA form, this is what that invite looks like. Again, we're almost done. Again, we'll have the parent section. You can review the things, all of the answers that you included, all of the drop downs are here so you can review. It'll again have an updated section for the contributor section to see where we're at with things. And then you will agree to the terms and sign the application. By doing that, that will send the FAFSA off for processing, and then your student will receive a FAFSA confirmation that it is processing, and what your next steps are. For the student to see their FAFSA submission summary, again, it is the student's FAFSA form, so they are going to find this information when they log in with their information. It is not, the parents do not see this on the when the parents log in. So it's the student's FAFSA, and so the student will see their FAFSA submission summary, their estimated aid, and their SAI. A portion of FAFSAs are selected for verification, and that just allows the schools to verify the information on the FAFSA. This is a prescribed process by the U.S. Department of Education. If required, all schools will need to complete the review. So if your FAFSA is selected for verification, you will need to complete the verification process at the schools that you're looking at. There would be additional documentation that would need to be submitted, and you'll just work with each school. We all have our own verification forms, so unfortunately there's not one verification form to fill out, so you'll have to fill out one for each school that you're looking at. The use of the IRS consent and the information directly coming from the IRS, we are seeing reduced verification, and also the need for fewer documents needed from families. And it's basically used to confirm the accuracy of your FAFSA data and ensure that you're receiving the correct amount of aid. We have seen, the SAI go up and down based on verification. And we're also seeing a lot less verification due to the increase of using the IRS data transfer. So there are students that have things in their household that can't be explained on the FAFSA. So when you complete the FAFSA, you're going to complete it just as it asks, using information for 2024 and based on the information that you have. But there could be things happening in your family that can't be explained on the FAFSA, but make a make a big difference to you on how your student is going to continue with school, or how to pay for school. So there could be the death of a parent or spouse, there could be a loss of employment, there could be a divorce. So something that has happened since, the tax information that's provided till today. And so that is what we call a special circumstance. So each college handles this process differently. There aren't any universal procedures. And what you'll want to do is if you're in one of these situations, you're going to want to reach out to the financial aid office at each of the schools to see what the next steps are. So what colleges have the ability to do is we can make changes on the FAFSA to help show what the true picture is of what's going on in that family's situation versus what a family is asked to provide on the FAFSA. So we have the ability to make changes that students and families do not. So we will ask for documentation. And this could be a back and forth process. You may provide documentation when we may review it and then ask for additional things. So you'll just want to make sure that you are in contact with the financial aid office. We're going to review and, like I said, request additional information if necessary. And then again, this is to make sure that we have written explanations and documentation to show why we made changes on the FAFSA. To make sure that the information that you have provided matches the information that the changes that we make on the FAFSA. So it all makes sense, and we can make those changes. Again, this process, each college handles this process differently. The outcome of the special circumstances appeal could be different at each institution. And once that appeal has been made and the college has made the determination, the outcome is final. All right. We are almost done, and we just want to make sure that you have some information on getting help. So some things you want to look at for assistance when you're looking at financial aid is the college financial aid offices. Studentaid.gov has a vast amount of information. There is a resource page that has infographics and videos. Your high school guidance counselors are a wonderful source of information. We always encourage families to look at the net price calculator. This allows you to do some rough calculations on what school costs after financial aid is estimated. And then OASFA.org, so the organization that I'm representing today, has a counselor resource page, and we also have a resource for parents and students page that has a lot of great things for you to review to help you get the information that you need. And the last thing I'll say is just be cautious if a consultant will help you with financial aid for a small fee. All of this information is free. The FAFSA is free. And so we wouldn't want folks to pay for any of this information. So again, we want to thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, you can reach out at oasfa.org. And we wish you and your student all of the best for the rest of the school year and for the first year of school for 26-27. Thank you so much.